Hello everyone. Our talk is about the grave goods and their social and cultural relationship with the dead, and of course with the living. I will do a brief contextualization of the archaeological site, the crypts of the Chapel of the Holy Spirit in the city of Loures, location, chronology, and its excavation. The aims of this presentation are 1. To discuss the presence of grave goods identified in the excavation of the crypts. 2. Who these objects embodies personal ideologies and social and mental structure in direct relation to the dead. The map identifies the location of the Convent of the Holy Spirit in Loures. Loures is a city located at 10 miles north of Lisbon. On the right, it shows the facade of the convent and the chapel of the Holy Spirit, and below the three crypts. These crypts, containing human remains, were fully excavated. It was a high socio-economic status population groups. The burials were done between 1561 and 1834. Indeed, the building of the convent began in 1561 and was financed by a very rich merchant, Dom Luís de Castro do Rio. After his death, his family protected the convent for many generations, achieving the right to be buried in the crypts. It gave them social prestige and the salvation of their soul after death. The archaeological excavation was carried out by myself and Ana Raquel Silva between 2005 and 2011. Individuals were buried inside wood coffins. Only Dom Luís Castro do Rio was in a stone sarcophagus. The coffins were lined up and on the top of each other. Lime was placed on the bodies to accelerate their decomposition. Individuals were lying on their backs. The head turned toward the ceiling. The arms had a variable position, either in the chest, abdomen, or in line with the body. Legs are extended. The individuals were facing the altar. 49 burials were characterized by skeleton in their anatomical position were recorded. 37 adults and 12 no adults. The number of female was greater than male. Thousands of disarticulate bones were identified in the corner of the crypt. These bones represented the oldest burial in the crypts. They were removed from their original position to provide rooms for the newest burials. The grave goods were diverse, and we found many interesting artifacts.
Thanks, Natalie, and I will take it from here. The purpose of this study is not only to talk about grave goods, but about the relationships and interactions between these artifacts and the people that actually wore them at the end of their lives. There are many different agents in these stories, and the influence they have on each other will be debated. In this particular context, we are lucky enough to know some aspects of the people buried here, although only rarely their name. The crypt belonged to a noble family who actually founded the convent, and the type of objects and behaviors is quite diverse, especially in terms of religion and personal beliefs. More than generating conclusions, if any can be drawn when someone deals with the end of one's life, we would like to talk and think about things, about people, about rituals, and the way people materialized death. A large portion of the finds corresponds to what we can call funerary furniture, telling the story of how people were buried. Except for the aforementioned case of the stone sarcophagus, all the other coffins were made of wood. This means that a lot of iron nails were found, but also the handles of the coffins and the little nails that hold the inner linings in place. Curious is the amount of locks that were found inside the crypts. The coffins were actually locked. The question is, was this to keep people out or to keep them in? Most of the deceased were buried wrapped in a shroud, held together with pins, little ones. In one specific grave, the amount of pins close to the skull was so big that it was most likely used to hold some sort of airpiece in place instead of the shroud itself. However, it seems that not all of them were buried without clothes, and some buttons, either made of bone, glass, or metal, have been found within the graves, suggesting that the deceased were fully dressed. These were made of bone, of glass, and of metal. However, most of the clothes were clothed with a hook and eye system, since a few dozens of these were found. Considering that most of the burials in these crypts are female, it is possible that this system may have been related to female outfits. Shoes are also a very common discovery in the crypt associated to this family, which means that a lot of people did not want to face their final destination without shoes, and a few of them were actually found in their final position in their feet. Some of the shoes are unique in terms of what we know in burial places in this country. So some of them reveal a different style, such as the remains of these red high heel shoes that, as you can imagine, were not accessible to a large part of the population, which can in fact indicate the wealth of this family. But not everything was for clothes, and some objects are directly connected to religion. Rosaries are made of different types of beads. Bone beads are the more recurrent, something that happens in other funerary sites as well, followed by a large number of glass beads, especially black and white glass beads, wood, and in one particular case we have an amber bead, although we still don't know if it was used as a rosary element or if it was used in any other type of ornament. Medals with religious iconography are also quite frequent, especially associated to images of with the Our Lady or Christ representations. Most of them are made of copper alloy, and they are quite frequent in several burial places in Portugal. And one of them is actually covered in gold, so it's quite interesting to see the third one from left to right. In one case, the fourth one from left to right, a mother of pearl metal, which is not that frequent, very delicate with Christ iconography representation, and I'm not aware of any other object of this kind in Portugal thus far. And of course, there are some objects that find no similarity in nothing. This copper alloy artifact seems to be some sort of pendant, and it was found close to the chest area of one of the deceased. I sometimes wonder why people took these personal objects with them and think that these were probably felt as part of their body, an extension of themselves, and they could not imagine their lives or deaths without them, and that's why some choices were made in the type of objects you would take to the grave. Well, let us stop a minute in this image where an individual, a female, was associated to a lot of things. In terms of ritual, these were all Catholics buried in wooden coffins. Some of the coffins seem to have more quality than others, and while some had metal handles, others had leather ones. The coffins were covered inside with textiles, and while some of them seem to have very high quality interiors, others, by the contrary, seem to be more frugal or in terms of less wealthy, if we can put it that way. Some people wrapped in a shroud, taking nothing with them, as expected in a Catholic burial, while others took their clothes, their personal possessions, and even fancy shoes. In terms of objects people carried with them, these are mostly religious objects that correspond to rosaries and medals made of metal with saints and religious iconography. Personal objects such as rings, bracelets, and earrings are less frequent but still there, which makes us think why some people decided to take them with them and others did not. I was discussing identity the other day with a colleague, and we got to a conclusion that a person can have several types of identity, be many, many different things. In the case of the people buried here, we don't know a lot about them, but we know they come from a wealthy family, a merchant one, the ones who actually founded the the convent, uh, and we know that they self had different clothes and different shoes and different types of things that actually they were. Also, they were parts of a larger group of people. Most of the burials we found here are actually females. But what does that mean? Does it mean that they were the ones to be buried in this convent while others in this crypt, while others were buried in different places? Does this mean that the males actually died far away from the city, the places where they lived? We don't know, but these are only suggestions we make. What we want to do with this presentation, and this is just a start because we are analyzing a lot of burial sites where personal possessions, religious objects, and all these kinds of materiality have been found. So why do people materialize death? Why do people take things to the grave is the most important questions here that we still don't have an answer, but we really want to try to generate a debate. Thank you so much.